Not a killer, not anymore. Something worse. A thief of meaning, a predator who doesn't take life, just the quality that makes life worth living.
Dracula, Entry 1, The Glass Mirror. My name is Vlad Dracula. This book was never meant for your eyes. And yet here it lies now, tucked between the restless shelves of Grimwick's forbidden library, waiting like a trap with its jaws unsprung. Perhaps you stumbled upon it. Perhaps it found you. The distinction hardly matters anymore. Today I write about my windows. Windows that are not windows at all. About glass that is merely pretense. About light I will never touch, never feel warm my skin, never watch paint shadows across my hands the way it once did, centuries ago, when I was something else, something less, something mortal. Every line you read reveals a piece of my truth. And because you're reading this now, because your eyes are moving across these words, because your breath quickens just slightly. Oh yes, I can almost hear it, even from here, even across whatever distance separates us. You have already stepped into my shadow. Listen carefully then. Words, you see, can have teeth. Chapter 1, The False Light. I sit in my office above Manhattan. 43 floors above the chaos, the noise, the magnificent, pulsing life of it all. But I do not sit at a window. Number. That would be too honest, too cruel, too true. Instead, I sit before monitors, wall to wall, floor to ceiling, edge to edge. They call them windows. These 192K displays that wrap around my corner office like a second skin, like a cocoon, like a beautiful, elaborate lie. Windows. The irony tastes like copper on my tongue, sharp and familiar and almost pleasant. My guests, these creatures of the new century with their smartphones and their certainties, they believe they're looking at Fifth Avenue, at Central Park stretching north like a great green lung in the city's chest, at the Hudson bleeding silver in the distance. Real traffic below, real rain on real glass, real decay creeping through real concrete, but the glass between us is not glass at all. It is pixels. Millions upon millions of them. Little lies, stacked like bricks, building walls between truth and comfort, between what is and what we wish to see. And I have become quite good at building such walls. Watch how they marvel at the sunrise that never was. It is 6:47 in the morning. The displays shift their hue, algorithms calculating the exact shade of dawn, the precise angle of light that should, theoretically, be spilling across the skyline at this moment. Pink, bleeding into gold, bleeding into that peculiar blue that only exists in the brief minutes after night surrenders. It is perfect. It is flawless. It is completely, utterly false. Behind these screens, concrete, steel, darkness. My darkness. The sun rises somewhere. I know this intellectually, the way one knows mathematics or history, or the precise breaking point of human cervical vertebrae. But I do not feel it. I have not felt it for so long that the memory itself has become suspect, unreliable, warped by time and hunger, and the endless, grinding weight of years. What I feel instead is this: the cold luminescence of LED arrays. The faint electromagnetic hum that humans cannot hear, but that sets my teeth on edge. A frequency just beyond their perception. The artificial warmth of machinery pretending to be sunshine. For them, it is truth. For me, it is deception. And deception, you must understand, has always been my art. There is a particular silence in these moments. The city never truly sleeps. I know this better than anyone. But there is a quality to the early morning, a holding of breath before the day truly begins. My office exists in that held breath, suspended, waiting. I watch the false light paint shadows across my desk, shadows that should not exist, cast by a sun that is not there. I find this amusing. I find this perfect. The humans will arrive soon. My partners, my investors, my prey. Though they will never know to call themselves that. They will step into this office. They will see these magnificent displays, and they will believe. They will believe in the view, in the light, in the illusion of transparency. They will believe they are meeting with Victor Draven, self-made billionaire, tech visionary, patron of arts and innovation. They will never see Vlad Dracula, the Impaler, the Dragon's son, the thing that wears Victor Draven like a well-tailored suit. I adjust my tie. Italian silk, obscenely expensive, the color of old blood. Another costume, another lie. The humans love their symbols of power, and I have learned to wear them well. Better than well. Perfectly. The monitors show morning traffic beginning to thicken on Fifth Avenue. Joggers in Central Park. A vendor setting up his cart. Steam rising from coffee that I will never taste. All of it captured by cameras, processed by computers, displayed on my walls in real time, with perhaps a half-second delay. Reality, served at a remove. Truth, at a distance. This is how I live now. This is how I have learned to survive. I built this office myself, or rather, I hired the architects and engineers and designers who built it to my exact specifications. Every detail calculated, every surface planned. The monitors, yes, but also the blackout shutters hidden in the walls, ready to descend at the first hint of true sunlight. The reinforced concrete, the triple redundant power systems, the server room in the basement that doubles as ominous well, as something else. Protection and prison, fortress and cage. The humans think it is eccentric. The billionaire who never opens his curtains, who conducts all his meetings in this strange screen-lit space. They write articles about it. They theorize. They admire the bold design choice and the innovative workspace. They understand nothing. I spread my fingers on the desk, glass and steel, cold even to my cold touch. 5 centuries, and I can still remember when desks were wood, when offices were chambers, when business was conducted with blood and iron rather than contracts and capital. The memory flickers, distant, like watching one of these screens with dying pixels. The intercom chimes, soft, discreet, very expensive. Mr. Draven, your 7 o'clock is here. Angela, my assistant, 28 years old, graduate of Columbia. Efficient to the point of ruthlessness. She has worked for me for 3 years and knows almost nothing about me. This is by design. Send them in, I say. I do not move from my chair. I remain silhouetted against the false dawn. A dark shape against manufactured light. This too is calculated. This too is art. The door opens. 2 figures enter. I know them already. I have read their files, their histories, their secrets. I know what they want. I know what they fear. I know the precise pressure points where their ambitions and their doubts intersect. What a single word from me could tip them toward yes, or toward no. Toward life, or toward... But I am getting ahead of myself. They see the screens. They see the view. Their pupils dilate slightly. Wonder, awe, perhaps a touch of envy. And they do not see me at all. Not really, not yet. Chapter 2. The Curtain of Deception. Remarkable view, Mr. Draven. The woman speaks first. Catherine Morse, Chief Financial Officer of a mid-sized pharmaceutical company. 42 years old, divorced. 2 children she sees every other weekend. A wine habit that hovers just this side of problematic. Her companion is younger. Marcus Chen, her company's head of research and development. Brilliant and ambitious, and so hungry for recognition. I gesture to the chairs before my desk. Please, sit. They do. They always do. The chairs are positioned just so. Their backs to the monitors, facing me, facing the false light that halos my silhouette. It is difficult to read facial expressions against such brightness. It is difficult to see clearly. This is intentional. The sunrise in New York is unique, I say, my voice modulated, careful. I have had centuries to perfect the accent, to sand away the Wallachian edges, to adopt the mid-Atlantic neutrality of American wealth. Don't you think? The way the light catches the buildings, the way the city seems to awaken. Cursor. Catherine leans forward slightly. You're here this early every morning? I keep unusual hours, I reply. This is not a lie. This is perhaps the most honest thing I have said to anyone in months. I find the quiet productive. The city shows you different faces when most people are sleeping. Marcus glances at the monitors, at the joggers and the vendors and the taxis beginning to multiply like cells dividing. It's almost hypnotic. The resolution is incredible. It's like you're not even looking at screens. That's the idea, I say softly, to eliminate the barrier between inside and outside. To create the illusion of transparency. Illusion. The word hangs in the air. Neither of them catches it. We discuss their proposal, a partnership, an investment, my capital for their innovation. They need funding for a new drug, something to do with blood disorders. They have no idea how appropriate this is, how perfect. They present their data, their projections, their carefully rehearsed pitch. I barely listen to the words. I am listening to other things. Her heartbeat, slightly elevated, nervous. The micro-expressions that flicker across her face when Marcus speaks. The slight tightening around her eyes that suggests she does not entirely trust him. His breathing, controlled, measured, but a little too careful. He is hiding something. Ambition, perhaps, or fear. I can smell it on them. Fear, desire. The particular scent of human sweat when mixed with expensive deodorant and cheaper anxiety. It is a perfume I have known for centuries, and it has never stopped being intoxicating. Your proposal is interesting, I say, interrupting Marcus mid-sentence. He stops immediately. They both do. There is power in silence, in the sudden withdrawal of attention. But I have concerns. What kind of concerns? Catherine's voice is steady, but I can hear her pulse quicken. I stand, slowly. I move to the wall of monitors, my back to them now, my face illuminated by the false light. On the screens, the sun continues its inexorable climb. Another lie. Another perfect simulation. This drug of yours, it affects blood coagulation, yes? It makes bleeding easier. I pause, letting the weight of the word settle, but also makes clotting more efficient when needed. A paradox. It's a balancing act, Marcus says. The dosing has to be precise, but precision, I murmur. Yes, that is the key, isn't it? To know exactly how much, not too much, not too little, just enough. I turn back to face them. The light is behind me now, and I am shadow, silhouette, suggestion. I am interested in your paradox, Dr. Chen. In medicines that make the blood behave in unexpected ways. In fact, I move closer to them. Not threatening, not yet. Just present, looming slightly. It is remarkable how much psychological weight can be carried by simple proximity. I am interested in blood, generally. Its properties, its potential. Did you know that blood typing is a relatively recent innovation? A little over a century old. Before that, transfusions were unpredictable, dangerous, sometimes miraculous, sometimes fatal. Catherine shifts in her chair. Mr. Draven, I'm not sure I understand how this relates to... Doesn't it fascinate you? I continue as if she hasn't spoken. How something so essential, so fundamental to life itself, can be so variable. So individual. Each person carrying their own unique formulation. Type A, type B, AB, O. Positive, negative. And that's just the beginning. There are hundreds of minor antigens, rare factors, mutations we're still discovering. I am standing directly in front of them now, close enough to see their pupils contract, close enough to hear the slight catch in Catherine's breathing. Blood, I say softly, is not simple at all. It is baroque, complicated, full of secrets. Marcus clears his throat. Our drug works across blood types. That's one of its key innovations. Of course it does. I smile. Not too wide. Never too wide. That's why I'm investing. The word lands like a stone dropped in still water. Ripples of relief, of triumph, of disbelief. You're saying yes? Catherine's voice is barely above a whisper. I'm saying yes. I return to my desk, to my chair, to my position of power. On certain conditions, I want access to your clinical trial data. All of it. Especially the blood work, the before and afters, the anomalies. Anomalies? Marcus frowns. Every trial has them. Outliers. Results that don't fit the pattern. I want to see those especially. Can you provide that? They exchange glances. They are wondering why a billionaire investor cares about statistical outliers in medical data. They are wondering if this is eccentric genius or something else. They will provide it anyway. They need my money more than they need their questions answered. Of course, Mr. Draven, Catherine says. Whatever you need. Whatever you need. If only they knew. Professional. We shake hands, their skin warm against my cold palm. Their grips firm and professional, and utterly unaware. I see them to the door. I watch them leave, their footsteps fading down the hallway, their voices hushed and excited as they enter the elevator. The door closes. I am alone again. I return to the monitors, to the false light, to the city that wakes without me. An office is a stage, I have learned. The light belongs to them, the humans, the living, the warm-blooded creatures who still believe in mornings and sunshine and truth. The darkness belongs to me, and in that darkness, I whisper contracts that steal more than money, that take more than equity, that claim pieces of soul so small they never notice the absence until it is far, far too late. Chapter 3. Blood as capital. The truth that no one knows. My business was never social media, never tech, never the venture funds or the real estate portfolio or the charitable foundations. My business has always been blood. It flows through different channels now. Sterile names, clinical terminology, donation banks, plasma centers, pharmaceutical companies researching blood disorders, clotting factors, hemoglobin variants. Every acquisition carefully chosen, every investment strategically placed. A network spanning continents, invisible to regulators, incomprehensible to auditors. My hands are clean. Literally, I wash them often, and there is never any visible stain. But my veins burn with hunger that 5 centuries have only sharpened. I sit at my desk and open the hidden database, not on these public monitors, but on a laptop that connects to nothing, stores everything locally, encrypts in algorithms I designed myself. Names, dates, blood types, locations. A ledger of consumption that would make the most aggressive hedge fund look like a church charity. Each entry is a life touched, not ended. I am not so crude anymore, not so wasteful, but touched, changed, diminished in ways that medical science cannot quite explain. The donor who feels perpetually tired afterward. The patient whose recovery takes mysteriously longer. The volunteer who develops an iron deficiency that never quite resolves. Vertical. I take only a little from each. Not enough to kill. Not even enough to seriously harm. Just enough to sustain. Just enough to continue. It is industrialized hunting. Farming, really. And I am very, very good at it. Wall Street, they call it. The great engine of American capitalism. I remember when it was literally a wall. Wooden posts and mud, built by the Dutch to keep out the English. Now it is something else. Something vast and hungry and abstract. A machine that converts human labor, human time, human life, into numbers that dance across screens. I understand this machine intimately. I helped build portions of it. Because Wall Street, at its core, is what I have always done. Converting life into sustenance, blood into power, mortality into capital. Every share of stock is a claim on future human effort. Every bond is a promise extracted from not yet lived days. Every derivative is a bet on the continuation of the heartbeat, the drawing of breath, the persistence of the pulse. It is vampirism made respectable, made legal, made necessary. And I am merely its most honest practitioner. The laptop screen glows in the darkness of my office. The monitors have shifted to show midday, another algorithm, another careful simulation. But I am not looking at them anymore. I am looking at my numbers, my accounts, my harvest. The second, Zurich, the Caymans, Singapore, Luxembourg. Shell corporations nested inside shell corporations, like Russian dolls made of paperwork. Assets that cannot be frozen because they cannot be found. Wealth that cannot be taxed because it officially belongs to entities that barely exist. And hidden among the legitimate holdings, the pharmaceutical companies, the blood banks, the plasma donation centers, are the other operations, the ones that exist in the margins. The pop-up clinics in developing nations, the medical ships that dock in international waters, the research facilities in countries where oversight is a concept rather than a reality. Each one is a coffin in its way, a place where I have stored the dark earth of my homeland, mixed with the soil of 100 other countries. A place where I can rest if needed. A place where I can feed, if hungry. Coffins made of corporate structure. Coffins made of legal protections. Coffins made of money. I remember when a coffin was just wood and nails. When homeland earth was literally dirt scraped from the soil of Wallachia, transported in boxes, hoarded like gold. Dracula, the old text said, must sleep in his native soil or lose his power. They were not wrong exactly, just limited in their imagination. Soil is material, homeland is concept, power is relationship. I learned over the centuries that what mattered was not the physical earth, but the connection, the tie to place, to origin, to the landscape that shaped me. And connections can be maintained in ways those old scholars never dreamed. Money is my homeland now. Capital is my native soil. Every account is a piece of earth from Wallachia, transmuted by time and ingenuity into something that fits in the modern world. I close the laptop. The figures are satisfactory. The accounts are healthy. The blood flows. Tomorrow, I have meetings with 3 more pharmaceutical companies. By next week, I will control 17% of the plasma supply chain in North America. By next month, the new blood typing research facility in Singapore will be operational, funded by a grant from my foundation, staffed by researchers who have no idea that every sample, every test, every result will also flow to me. Knowledge is power, they say. But blood is life. And life is the only currency that has ever truly mattered. I stand. I walk to the monitors again. The false sun reaches its zenith on the screens. Noon in the simulation. Midday in the lie. Somewhere out there, in the real Manhattan, beyond these walls, people are eating lunch, laughing, working, living. Their blood pumping through their veins, their hearts beating out the seconds of their finite existence. They think they are free. They think they are alive. They think they own their time, their effort, their blood. But they are wrong. They gave it to me the moment they accepted the terms, the moment they signed the contracts, the moment they believed that this system of capital and consumption was natural, inevitable, just the way things are. I am not a monster. Not anymore. Not in the way they imagine. I am something worse. I am legitimate, and that makes me perfect. Invisible. Untouchable. A predator so well adapted to its environment that the prey no longer recognizes the hunt. Chapter 4. The veins of the city. Manhattan at night is a body. A living, breathing organism with arteries of traffic and veins of pedestrian flow. And I move through it like a virus, like a parasite. Like something that belongs and doesn't belong simultaneously. Casual. I leave my office at 11 in the evening. The false light has shifted to false night. Monitors displaying the city as it actually looks for once. Dark sky, building lights, the honest reflection of evening. I almost appreciate the accuracy. Almost. The elevator descends. 43 floors. In the old days, this would have been a climb, a descent down stone stairs, spiraling into darkness. Now it is simply waiting in a metal box that hums with music, carefully designed to reduce anxiety. Baroque. Ironic. The lobby is marble and glass and chrome. Security guards nod to me. Mr. Draven, working late again. What dedication. They do not know that I am not coming from work. I am going to work. The real work. The work that predates corporations and capital markets and every civilized lie we've constructed to pretend we're not just animals in expensive clothing. I step onto Fifth Avenue and the city embraces me. The crowd at this hour is different. Not the morning rush of purpose and coffee and ambition. This is the nighttime stream. Diners and drinkers, theater-goers and tourists, delivery workers and insomniacs, and everyone in between. They flow around me like blood cells through a capillary, each on their own trajectory, each unaware of the whole. I choose my direction not by destination, but by scent, by instinct, by the pull of what? Hunger is too simple a word. Need is closer. Compulsion is most accurate. I walk south toward the village. The streets narrow, the crowds thicken. More bars here, more restaurants, more life, concentrated in smaller spaces. The noise rises. Laughter, arguments, car horns, music bleeding from doorways. Casual. I pass a group of young professionals, finance types probably, spending their bonuses on cocktails that cost what their grandparents earned in a week. One of them bumps into me, apologizes, continues walking. He never saw my face, never registered anything but obstacle and politeness. This is my greatest gift, the ability to be present and absent simultaneously, to exist in the peripheral vision of the world. I see them all. The banker on his third martini, tie loosened, wedding ring catching the light. The intern trying to keep up, to laugh at the right moments, to not reveal that she's exhausted and overwhelmed and wondering if this is really what she wanted. The partner who watches the intern with eyes that linger too long. I see the bartender who smiles for tips while planning to quit next month. The chef in the kitchen who touches his lower back and wonders how much longer he can do this. The couple in the corner booth who aren't speaking, who have run out of words, who are held together now only by inertia and fear. I see all of them, and in each I see the pulse, the heartbeat, the blood. But I do not strike. Not here. Not now. This is reconnaissance. This is appreciation. The way a gourmet might browse a menu before ordering. The way an artist might study a landscape before painting. I continue walking. Washington Square Park opens before me. A pocket of trees and darkness surrounded by light. Students from New York University cluster on benches. A guitarist plays something melancholy. A chess hustler packs up his board, day's earnings counted. And there, she sits alone on a bench. 24, maybe 25. Dark hair pulled back, headphones in, laptop open. The glow of the screen painting her face in blues and whites. Working late on something. Thesis, probably. Or screenplay. Or the novel that will save her. She is so focused she doesn't notice me. Doesn't notice anything. Doesn't notice that she has been sitting in the same spot for 3 hours, and the park is emptying, and the safety of crowds is dissolving into the vulnerability of isolation. I could take her. Right now. Right here. It would be easy, a touch, a whisper, a pull into the darkness between streetlights. She would never scream. I would make sure of that, but I don't. Why? Not morality, not mercy. These concepts have no meaning for me anymore, if they ever did. No, it's something else. Something closer to aesthetics. To craft. Taking her here, now, would be crude, wasteful. Like drinking cheap wine when you have the palate for vintage. Instead, I memorize her. The curve of her jaw, the way her fingers move across the keyboard, the unconscious bite of her lower lip when she's concentrating. The particular rhythm of her breathing. She will cross my path again. Manhattan is large but not infinite, and I have patience that outlasts empires. I move on, past Bleecker Street, past clubs where the music is so loud it vibrates in my chest, not my heart. I have no heartbeat, but the space where my heart used to be. Past restaurants where the smells are overwhelming, nauseating. I cannot eat food anymore. Everything tastes of ash and rot. Only blood retains flavor. Only blood satisfies. But I remember. God help me, I remember. The taste of bread, the sweetness of wine, the richness of meat slow roasted over fire. These memories are torture. Beautiful, excruciating torture. I find myself at the Hudson. The water is black and silver under the lights of New Jersey across the river. The smell of it hits me. Decay and salt and diesel and something older. Something that was here before the city, before the Dutch, before humans walked these shores at all. Water. Ancient barrier. Ancient fear. I can cross it, of course. I've learned that much. The old stories about vampires and running water are not quite right. Not quite wrong. It's not that I cannot cross. It's that it costs me. Drains me. Makes me vulnerable in ways I cannot fully explain, so I avoid it when possible. This island is enough. Manhattan has millions of people, billions of heartbeats. I could hunt here for decades and never exhaust the supply. Sustainable predation, that's the modern term. I am nothing if not modern. I turn back toward the city, toward the light, toward the crowds. I rejoin the flow of the living, slipping among them like a shadow. Like a cold current in warm water. Somewhere, 6 blocks north, maybe 7, a siren wails. Ambulance or police, hard to tell. Someone is hurt. Someone is dying. Someone is already dead. The city generates these tragedies constantly, endlessly. It is a machine for creating victims, and I am just one predator among many. The thought should comfort me. It doesn't. I walk until dawn threatens, that peculiar lightening of the sky that I can feel more than see, a tension in the air, a shift in the electromagnetic field that sets my nerves screaming. Then I descend into the subway. Down into the tunnels, into the darkness that is always mine. The train arrives. I board. I sit among the late shift workers and early morning commuters, and the homeless seeking warmth. I am just another tired soul heading home. No one looks at me. No one ever looks at me. I ride the train back uptown. I exit at 51st. I walk to my building. I ascend 43 floors. Back to my office. Back to my monitors. Back to the false light that will soon show another false sunrise. The city sleeps. The city never sleeps. Both statements are true. And I endure. I persist. I continue. Manhattan is a body, and I am the virus in its veins. Invisible, adaptive, eternal, at least until the cure. Chapter 5. Memory of light. There are moments, rare, unexpected, unwelcome, when I remember what it was like to feel the sun. It happens without warning. A particular angle of light through the false windows. A certain quality to the air. The scent of something I cannot quite place, but that triggers memories so old they might be from someone else's life. And suddenly I am 500 years away. In Wallachia. In the castle. In the moment before everything changed. The sun on my skin was not what people imagine. It was not gentle. The Romanian sun in summer was harsh, burning, unforgiving. I remember sweat. I remember squinting. I remember the way heat would rise from stone courtyards in shimmering waves. I remember being alive in it. My office is cold, climate-controlled to precisely 68 degrees. The monitors show perfect weather, 72 and sunny, not a cloud in the simulation. But I feel none of it. I am a creature of perfect temperature regulation now. I do not sweat. I do not shiver. I do not react to heat or cold the way the living do. I am optimal, efficient, dead. The trade was never explained to me clearly. Immortality, yes. Power, yes. But also loss. The loss of sensation. The loss of flavor. The loss of every small pleasure that makes mortality bearable. I would eat spoiled meat now and taste nothing. I would plunge my hand into fire and feel only the abstract knowledge of heat, not the pain. I would stand in a blizzard and experience no cold, only the intellectual understanding that I should be freezing. Everything is mediated. Everything is at a remove. Everything is experienced through the filter of what I remember, rather than what I feel. Except blood. Blood, I feel. Blood is immediate. Blood is real. It is the only sensation that cuts through the numbness, the only experience that connects me to the present rather than the past. This is why I hunt. Not from necessity alone. I could sustain myself on very little, could ration and plan and make every feeding last months. But from desperate need for sensation, for confirmation that I still exist in some tangible way. When I drink, I feel the warmth, I feel the pulse, I feel life pouring into me, filling the void, making me, for a moment, for a precious, fleeting moment, almost alive. And then it fades, and I am cold again, and the hunger returns, sharper than before. I stand at my false windows and watch the false sun climb the false sky, pixels pretending to be photons, light that carries no heat, no ultraviolet, no danger, no reality. I built this. I designed this exact torture. Because even fake sunlight is better than no sunlight at all. Even the lie of warmth is preferable to the truth of endless darkness. Pathetic, isn't it? 500 years. Empires risen and fallen. Technologies invented and discarded. Languages evolved. Continents explored. Wars fought. And I am still mourning the loss of something as simple as sunshine. There is a price for immortality that no one mentions. It is not the killing, though that weighs. It is not the isolation, though that aches. It is this, the gradual erosion of everything that made life worth living, until all that remains is the mechanical necessity of continuing. I do not age, but I am so very, very tired. The monitors shift, the algorithm calculates. The false sun reaches its false zenith. Noon, perfect and terrible, and completely untrue. I close my eyes. A gesture, nothing more. I do not need to blink, do not need to rest them. But the gesture helps. It creates a boundary between me and the light. It gives me permission to remember darkness that was chosen, rather than imposed. When I open them again, the office is unchanged. The city is unchanged. I am unchanged. This is the real curse. Not the hunger, not the killing, not even the immortality itself. It is this, the knowledge that nothing will ever change. That I will stand at these false windows in 100 years, 200 years, watching false sunlight, and remembering, always remembering, what it was like when light was real, and warmth was more than a word. Sehnsucht, the Germans call it. Longing, yearning. The desire for something that cannot be possessed, for something that exists only in memory or dream. I am made of Sehnsucht, built from it, sustained by it. And it is its own kind of poison. Chapter 6. The Shadow of Van Helsing. I feel him before I know he exists. It is always this way. A pattern in the noise, a trend in the data, a name that appears too many times in too many places, connected by threads too fine for anyone else to notice, but that stand out to me like blood on snow. Someone is asking questions. It starts small. An academic paper analyzing mortality rates in cities where I've done business. A blog post about disappearances near blood donation centers. A journalist's inquiry into the ownership structure of pharmaceutical companies. Each instance alone means nothing. Coincidence. Curiosity. The normal functioning of a free press in a democratic society. But together they form a pattern. And I have learned over centuries to fear patterns. I sit at my desk, the real desk, not the public one, in the room behind my office that no one knows exists. The monitors here show different information, data streams, financial transactions, medical records, surveillance footage from cameras I own or control or have simply hacked, and searches. Hundreds of them, thousands. All filtered, all analyzed, all checked for patterns that might indicate awareness. There, third screen from the left. A search query flagged by my algorithms. Victor Draven plus blood banks plus Eastern Europe plus missing persons. The search originated from a library at Columbia University. The user cleared their browser history immediately after. The timestamp shows 2:17 in the morning. Someone working late. Someone careful. Someone who knows enough to be dangerous. I pull up campus surveillance. The library at that hour is nearly empty. A few graduate students, a custodian, and there, third floor, corner desk, a figure hunched over a laptop. Male, approximately 35, wearing a sweater that's seen better days. Coffee cup at his elbow, fourth or fifth of the night based on the jitter of his hands. I zoom in. The image is grainy but clear enough. Dark hair. Glasses. The kind of intense focus that comes from obsession, not just research. I run facial recognition. It takes 14 seconds. My algorithms are very, very good. Jonathan Harker, professor of Eastern European history, specialization in medieval Wallachia. Published 3 books, none of them bestsellers. Divorced, no children. Lives alone in a rent-controlled apartment in Morningside Heights. The name hits me like a physical blow. Harker. It cannot be. It must not be. But here he is, carrying the same name, asking the same questions, following the same paths as his ancestor did over a century ago. Is it genetics, some curse that passes through bloodlines, or merely coincidence, the universe's sick joke, dressing up the same hunt in different clothes? I dig deeper. His dissertation, the historical Dracula, separating man from myth. His recent search history, all the things someone would research if they were beginning to suspect that the myths were not myths at all. He has not found me yet. Not quite. Not directly. But he is close. Uncomfortably close. The searches are getting more specific. The questions more pointed. The connections more accurate. I could end this now. An accident. A nugging gone wrong. A sudden heart attack. I know a doctor who can arrange such things. Someone who owes me favors that go beyond money. But there is a part of me, cruel, curious, perhaps a little mad, that wants to see how far he gets. That wants to watch this new Harker stumble toward the truth. That wants to know if history truly repeats or merely rhymes. Van Helsing was the real threat. The old professor with his garlic and his crosses and his absolute certainty. Harker was just the messenger, the witness, the one who brought the tale. Is this Harker the same? Just an observer? Or is there a new Helsing waiting in the wings, using Harker to flush me out? I close the surveillance feed. I sit in darkness, thinking, ominous. The old patterns are emerging. The old dance beginning again. Hunter and hunted, predator and prey, switching roles depending on the moment. I thought I had escaped this. I thought that in the modern world, with its technology and its bureaucracy and its endless, beautiful complexity, I could hide in plain sight forever. But the past has a gravity. It pulls. It returns. It never truly releases its grip. I make a note in my private file. Monitor Harker. Do not engage. Not yet. And then I add, almost as an afterthought, check for connections to Vatican archives. Check for contacts in Amsterdam. Check for anyone named Seward, or Morris, or Helsing. The last name I write carefully, as if the letters themselves might summon something. Because that's the thing about Van Helsing, about his legacy. It was never about one man. It was about an idea. The idea that evil could be fought, that monsters could be stopped, that old magic and new science could combine to save the world from darkness. Bullshit, of course. Romantic bullshit. The world is not saved. Evil is not fought. Monsters continue, but the idea persists. And ideas are the only things that can truly hurt me. I return to the main office, to the false windows, to the false light. The sun is setting in the simulation, pink and gold and orange, bleeding across a sky that does not exist. Somewhere in Morningside Heights, Jonathan Harker is still searching, still reading, still pulling at threads that lead to me. And I am watching him watch me, wondering which of us is the hunter, wondering when the pattern will complete itself, wondering if this time the ending will be different, or if I will simply have to kill him and start over. Again, and again, and again. The eternal return. The curse that predates my curse. History is a mouth, and it eats us all. Chapter 7. Mirrors and Teeth. I have come to love mirrors for precisely the reason I once feared them. They show nothing when I stand before them. No reflection, no image, no proof of existence. For centuries, this terrified me. To not see myself. To have no confirmation of my own reality beyond the reactions of others. But now I understand. Now I create mirrors deliberately, constantly. Mirrors made of glass, of pixels, of money. Mirrors that lie beautifully, that reflect what people want to see rather than what is. This office, these monitors, this entire life as Victor Draven. All of it is a mirror, a reflection of what a billionaire should be, what power should look like, what success should feel like. And people believe the reflection. They always believe the reflection, because humans are creatures of image, of appearance, of the surfaces they can see. Show them a reflection and they assume reality beneath it. Show them light and they forget to look for the source. I built my empire on this principle. Not on truth, but on the appearance of truth. Not on substance, but on the simulation of substance. My companies do real work. This is important. The blood banks function. The pharmaceutical research produces actual drugs. The investments yield actual returns. The lie is not in what I do. The lie is in who I am while doing it. Victor Draven is a mirror, a perfect reflection of ambition and innovation and American success. And behind the mirror, nothing. A void, a darkness. A thing that should not exist, but does. I am a vampire, playing at being human, so successfully that even I sometimes forget the truth. Until moments like this. Alone in my office, the false sun setting on the false windows. The city below, real and pulsing and alive, while I remain cold and still and dead. I touch the glass of the monitor. It is smooth, perfect, lifeless, like me. The reflection it shows, the sunset, the city, the life, is exquisite. But it is a reflection of something I can never have, never feel, never be. This is my art. This is my curse. To create perfect mirrors of life while remaining forever outside of life myself. And my teeth, my teeth. They are the truth behind the mirror, the reality beneath the reflection, the sharp fact that no simulation can hide. I run my tongue across them now, feeling the points, the edges, the weapons that I carry always, that I can never set down, that define me more than any title or fortune or carefully constructed identity. When I bite, the mirror breaks. When blood flows, the reflection shatters. When I feed, I am reminded forcefully and terribly of what I truly am. Not Victor Draven, billionaire philanthropist. Not even Vlad Dracula, warrior prince. Just hunger. Just need. Just the eternal, grinding necessity of consumption. The monitors dim. Evening mode. The algorithm decides. Time for softer light. Warmer tones. Time to wind down. To relax. To prepare for sleep. I do not sleep. Not really. I enter a state, dormant but aware, resting but ready. 4 hours in my private chamber, the one with the earth from Wallachia mixed into the concrete foundation. 4 hours of something like sleep. Then I rise, and the hunt begins again. This is my life. This is my eternity. Mirrors and teeth. Reflection and hunger. The beautiful lie and the terrible truth. And somewhere in this city, in the library at Columbia, or walking home through Morningside Heights, or lying awake in a rent-controlled apartment, Jonathan Harker searches for the truth. He will not find it. Not yet. Not until I decide. But he will keep looking, because that is what Harkers do. They look, they witness, they bring the tale. And what they bring, always, is my own ending. Reflected back at me like an image in a mirror I can finally see. I am about to leave, to descend to the street, to hunt, to feed, to continue the endless cycle, when the monitors flicker. Just once. Just for a second. But wrong. All wrong. The image that appears is not the city. Not the evening skyline. Not any simulation my algorithms could produce. It is a symbol. Ancient. Seared into my memory like a brand. A rose. 5 petals. Enclosed in a circle. The seal of the order. Van Helsing's order. And beneath it, text. 1 sentence. Burning white against black. We know what you are. Then it is gone. The skyline returns. The evening simulation resumes, as if nothing happened. But my hands, my steady, unchanging hands, they are shaking. Someone has breached my systems. Someone has reached past every firewall, every encryption, every protection. Someone has touched my mirror and left their fingerprints. The message is clear. The hunt has begun. And this time, I am not the only predator. I stand frozen before my false windows, watching false light paint false shadows. And for the first time in a century, I feel something I had almost forgotten. Fear. End of entry 1.
Every diary you hear is bought with hours of life. Be among the first to preserve this library. Become a founding patron. Link in the description.
Entry number 2. Saturday night in the Catskills. They call me many names. Most of them I gave myself, to make the hunt more convenient. To smooth the edges, to allow passage to the world without friction, without recognition, without the inconvenient questions that sharp corners provoke. Tonight I write about a night beyond the noise. About forests that know my pulse better than I know theirs. About a sky that doesn't see me, though I see it with a clarity that would burn mortal eyes. About hunting in the old way, the clean way, the way that predates skyscrapers and securities fraud, and all the elaborate machinery I've built to disguise what I am. If you keep reading, you might hear my footsteps in the leaves, or something else might hear yours. Chapter 1. The road without lanterns. The car glides, and yet it seems to stand still. So dense is the night here, so saturated the darkness between the trees, that even the headlights only carve a narrow wound of cold white into the black. Manhattan stays behind like a sound caught in your teeth, like you've bitten metal, like the taste won't leave no matter how you try to swallow it down. Out here, the mouthless forest begins. The silence here is not the absence of sound. It is a presence. It settles into every fiber like fine dust, like pollen, like something that wants to be breathed. The highway gave way to county roads an hour ago. The county roads gave way to something that might once have been called a road, but now is merely an agreement between tire and earth. My estate sits above a dead lake. The water can't decide whether it wants to be fog or mirror, so it compromises by being neither. The driveway winds like a vein, arterial, necessary, carrying me home to the heart of this place. And the house, when it finally appears through the trees, recognizes my approach. I feel it the way you might feel someone watching you from a darkened window. This place was not built. It was coaxed, tamed, the way you tame an animal, not by breaking it, but by convincing it that your will and its nature are the same thing. The gate closes behind me with the discretion of an airlock. No lights come on. I don't need them. The trees know where I'm going. Manhattan is a diet of noise, thin, unsatisfying, constant. It keeps you alive, but never full. Out here, I can chew. Out here, I can taste. The gravel crunches under my tires, with a sound like small bones breaking. The house waits, patient, hungry in its own way. I am home. Chapter 2. The house that breathes. The house carries on its back a roof of black slate, so flat the moon slides off it like water off waxed skin. Inside, the air is a cold cloth that drapes over every movement, every gesture. I have windows here, real ones, actual glass, but they don't look out. They look in, into the forest, as if the trees were the older, wiser architecture, and the house merely a presumptuous annotation, observational. There is a conservatory when I have let ivy darken the glass, until the greenhouse effect becomes a greenhouse defect. All the enclosure, none of the light. There is a salon with a fireplace that is never burned. Some wood stays more honest when it's cold. In the basement, there are rooms you shouldn't name individually. It's enough to imagine how metal sounds when it has nothing to open. On one wall hang old keys, iron, rust-spotted, belonging to locks that turned to earth decades ago. Next to them, modern card readers, biometric scanners, security protocols that draw data from breathing veins. You might think it's a contradiction, iron beside fiber optic. But contradiction is only a human word. For me, it's curation. Everything that helps stays. Everything that listens stays silent. Saturday night. My collection of silence polishes itself. I move through rooms that remember me. The floorboards don't creak under my weight. I'm too light now. Too empty. Too close to the physics of shadow. But they creak after I pass, as if my presence has an echo that arrives late. In the kitchen that I never use, there is wine I never drink. In the bedroom that I never sleep in, there is a bed I never lie upon. These are stage dressings, props for the performance of normalcy. Because sometimes guests come, and guests need to believe in the fiction of human habitation. I stop in the study. Leather and wood and the smell of old paper. Another fiction, this one chemical. Aerosol authenticity sprayed from a can. But it works. It creates the atmosphere of legacy, of old money, of something that has always been here and will always remain. The computer wakes at my touch. 7 monitors. Smaller than the Manhattan office, but connected to the same networks, the same databases, the same vast web of surveillance and control I've spun across 3 continents. I check the feeds, the algorithms report. Everything is optimal. Everything is proceeding according to projections, except there's a ping, a notification. Someone in the village is asking about me, about the man in the big house, about Victor Draven, who bought the old Vandermeer estate 5 years ago and renovated it, and now occasionally appears at local charity events with a check and a smile and nothing else. I read the social media post, a local forum. Someone wondering if I'm hiring for grounds work. Someone else saying they heard I'm some kind of tech investor. A third person, username Mountain Mara 88, saying she saw me at the Harvest Festival this afternoon and he's actually really nice for a rich guy. LOL. Mountain Mara 88. I click through to her profile. 23 years old, works at the general store, takes online classes, dreams of moving to Brooklyn or Portland or anywhere that isn't here. Posts photos of sunsets and her cat and quotes about living authentically. I study her face. Heart-shaped. Open. Unguarded in the way that only the young and the rural can be. She hasn't learned yet that openness is vulnerability, that every smile is a map to exploitation. She will learn tonight. I close the laptop, check my phone, a different phone, one registered to a different name. There's a message waiting, 2 words. After party. The sender is Mountain Mara 88. Real name, Mara Kellison. Sent from the parking lot of the Legion Hall where the Harvest Festival wrapped up an hour ago. I don't reply. Not yet. In hunting, patience is more than strategy. It's aesthetics. The prey should come to you, should believe it was their idea, should feel in the moment before understanding arrives that they chose this. I walk out onto the back terrace. The lake exhales fog like a dying breath. The forest watches. Somewhere in the dark, something moves. Deer, probably. Or coyote. But for a moment, I allow myself to imagine it's something else. Something watching me the way I watch them. The thought should worry me. It doesn't. Chapter 3. The invitation of cold. The land doesn't make appointments. It just opens doors. In Manhattan, I am the host. Out here, I am the guest. The difference is subtle and lethal. I stand on the terrace longer than necessary, listening to the water. It has a sound, not quite lapping, not quite still. A susurration, like blood in the veins of something sleeping. The air smells of cedar and old iron and something else, something organic and final, that might be rot or might be rebirth. In nature, they're the same thing. The harvest festival this afternoon was exactly what you'd expect. Bunting and baked goods, a band playing covers on a plywood stage, children with painted faces running between vendor stalls. I stood at the periphery, another out-of-towner with too much money and too little to say. I bought a jar of local honey I'll never eat. I admired hand-knit scarves I'll never wear. I smiled at the elderly woman running the church donation table and gave her $500 in cash. They love me here. Or they love the idea of me. The generous eccentric, the mysterious benefactor. The man who saves their festivals and their fire departments and asks nothing in return. What I ask for doesn't have a line item on the donation sheet. I saw her there, Mara, working a booth, selling something, pumpkins maybe, or cider. Her laugh cut through the crowd, bright and unforced. Young people laugh differently in small towns, like they haven't learned yet that joy needs to be rationed, that happiness is a limited resource you hoard for emergencies. I didn't approach her. I let her see me. Let her curiosity do the work. And now, hours later, she's texted, asking if I want to come to the real party. The one after the official one. The one where people actually have fun, instead of pretending for the tourists and the families. I text back, address? The reply is instant. I can come to you. Heard your place is amazing. And there it is. The invitation I didn't have to make. The door opening from the other side. Come around midnight, I type. Bring friends if you want. It's easy to get lost up here alone. That last part is true. It's also a test. Will she bring protection, or will she bring witnesses? Observational. The answer arrives 15 minutes later. Bringing Jake and Tyler. See you soon. Witnesses, then. Good. Better. The best hunts are the ones where the prey doesn't realize it's being hunted until the teeth are already in. Chapter 4. The room made of shadows. The salon on the ground floor looks like a photograph developed too early. The leather chairs are too dark for the lamp too old for the wood. On the table sits a bowl of pomegranates, their seeds bleeding from split flesh as if they have their own memory of violence. I didn't arrange this tableau. Images just happen to me. The house arranges itself around my presence, the way matter arranges itself around gravity. When guests come, the house reveals only what it wants them to see. A hallway extends. A mirror softens. A carpet directs the body toward the room I've chosen. People call this hospitality. In truth, it's the geometry of hunger. Observational. She doesn't come alone. I knew she wouldn't. Matter of fact, 2 men arrive with her. Boys, really. Mid-20s, wearing the uniform of rural masculinity. Flannel and work boots and the kind of beard that says, I could survive in the woods, even though they've never spent a night outside without a tent and a propane heater. Jake is tall, nervous, compensating with loudness. Tyler is shorter, quieter, watching everything with eyes that suggest he's smarter than he wants to appear. And Mara holds her laugh like a cigarette, lighting it at intervals to push back the dark. I offer them glasses, water, nothing more. Sometimes the gesture is the strongest poison. Are those real windows? Mara asks, pointing at the conservatory. More real than most, I say. Observational. She laughs. I measure the weight of it. Very light. Almost weightless. They settle into the salon like water finding a level. Jake gravitates toward the bookshelf, pretending to read titles. Tyler sits carefully, his body language broadcasting awareness of property values. And Mara looks at me with the kind of directness that means she's decided something about me already. Rich, eccentric, harmless. She's wrong about the last part. Chapter 5. The Liturgy of Consent. In cities, people believe in contracts. In the country, they believe in handshakes. I like both, but handshakes are more honest. They admit that trust is a physical act, that agreement happens in the flesh before it happens in language. We talk about the festival, about the singer who performed, a local girl who'd moved to Nashville and come back when the dream didn't work out. About the stars, which hang over the garden tonight like salt spilled badly across black cloth. The men build sentences from threads that tangle them. They insist they actually need to leave early tomorrow, that they really shouldn't stay long, and yet they stay. Actually is the favorite bridge of the willing. The woman's name is Mara, which is either coincidence or an intention older than her birth certificate. She wears a silver choker, cheap metal with a bold idea of elegance. There's nothing poor about her. Poverty is a decision. She hasn't made it. She speaks to me as if I've given her language. And for tonight, that's accurate. I explain the rules of the house. No photos, no live streaming, no location tags. The men nod, half intimidated, half relieved, as if I've given them permission to be nobody for a night. I offer them a room upstairs where the clocks have stopped. This isn't metaphor. I've had them disabled. Timelessness is the most expensive drug of the ultra-wealthy. Here, I threaten it freely. When I hunt, I rarely do it alone. Not because of danger, but because of grammar. A breathing body needs a sentence to fall into. I speak quietly, and their throats listen. I don't ask for consent. I generate it by assuming it. This is how all power creates its own permission. Stay a while, I ask Mara, as the men already count the stairs to the guest room with their eyes. She says, I never wanted to leave. This is the kind of truth the house rewards. Observational. Jake and Tyler retreat upstairs, murmuring about the crazy antiques and the vibe of the place. I hear them settle into the guest room, hear the bed springs creak, hear their voices fade into sleep or something like it. And then it's just Mara and me, and the house, and the night, pressing against the windows like something that wants in. Chapter 6. The Water That Waits. We walk down to the lake that isn't quite a lake. It accepts everything. The night's fog, the scent of cedar, the narrow track of my footsteps in wet grass. The water doesn't breathe. It holds its breath like a child waiting to be found. waiting for permission to exhale. Mara asks why the dock lights hang so low. So they don't offend the sky, I say, and she nods as if this is a reasonable concern. She talks about the city, about towers of billing and meadows of data, about jobs that eat days and nights that give nothing back. I always wanted something to happen to me, she says, casual as ordering coffee. You know, like something real. It's happening, I reply. The kiss is a formula. It opens only doors already without locks. The throat is a circuit. The skin has the temperature of a decision making itself. I don't drink greedily. Greed is uneconomical. I measure the pulse like a price, set the breath like a contract. Let the language drain like a stock, giving up its final value. She leans back because the body has learned to do this, and the lake watches without making the slightest sound. I leave barely more than cold, a memory the skin can't interpret. In Manhattan, they call this networking. Out here, it's harvest. The feeding is quick, efficient, precise. I take enough to matter, not enough to kill. Her pulse slows but doesn't stop. Her breathing shallows but continues. When she opens her eyes again, the sky is lighter, as if someone has slipped a hand beneath the fabric of night. She smiles, but the smile belongs to me now. I accept it politely. What happened? She whispers. You told me you wanted something real, I say. I gave it to you. Observational. She touches her neck, finds nothing. I'm too skilled to leave marks that last. But she feels it. The absence. The subtraction. The space where something used to be. I feel strange, she says. You feel awake, I correct her. Maybe for the first time. This is not entirely a lie. The feeding does something to them, the ones who survive it. They become sharper, more present, as if proximity to death clarifies life, as if losing blood teaches the body what blood is for. She'll remember this night differently than it happened. Her mind will edit the sequence, replace the truth with something more acceptable. She'll remember conversation, connection, maybe a kiss. She'll remember feeling seen. She'll remember my kindness. She will not remember my teeth. Chapter 7. The night's accounting. The men sleep upstairs in a room whose walls hold more than air. I hear their dreams as clearly as if they're speaking into a well. Dreams are useless data. The truly nutritious information comes from waking, what the body chooses when it believes no one is watching. Mara sits across from me in the salon. Her hands cradle the water glass as if it might contain some minor courage. I wrap a thin rail of words around her throat. Compliments that look like hooks but stroke like silk. She doesn't ask about the future. Future is an urban disease. Out here there's only repetition. The old formula of night that I've been transcribing for centuries. Never identical. Always valid. Before she leaves, I touch the place below her ear with a pulse as a second secret voice. I speak something into it that no other ear can hear. Not a command, not a prohibition. An agreement that grows in her like its own memory. When she talks about the festival in town, my house won't appear in the story. But the feeling that her axis has shifted slightly, that will remain. They call it trauma when they don't like it. awakening when they need it. I walk her to her car. The men follow, groggy, confused by time that seems to have folded in on itself. "What time is it?" Jake asks. "Late," I tell him. "Or early, depending on your perspective." They leave, tail lights disappearing down the driveway like red eyes closing. And I stand on the terrace, listening to the lake press its face against the dock. The house breathes. The trees adjust their leaves. A satellite draws a cold nail between two clouds. And before the hallway clock decides whether it wants to strike, I know this night has left something behind that isn't mine. On the foyer credenza sits an envelope I didn't put there. No seal, no return address, just a single hair laid across the flap. White, too thick for human, too fine for animal. I don't tear the envelope. I open it the way you open a wound. Just enough to let the light in. Inside is a card, handwritten. The penmanship from an older school that it clearly despises. One sentence, nothing more. "The earth that carries you is no longer yours." Observational. Below it, a red dot where Manhattan would be on a map, and a second smaller dot where Zurich should lie. I smile. Not from pleasure, from recognition. The forest suddenly has teeth again. The lake still holds its breath. I don't hold mine. The night is mine. But someone has found the sound you make when you unlock it. Before morning dares to remember itself, the study computer flickers to life, unbidden. The old modem signal, silent for years, a relic of previous centuries, crackles awake. 3 tones, a silence. Then a foreign password crawls across my screen. Tresor.erdezarh. Treasury, Earth, Zurich. And somewhere in the house, where there are no lines, no cables, no connection possible, something answers with a soft, willing click, like a lock opening, like a door, like permission granted from the inside out. Entry number 3, Zurich accounts. My name is Vlad Dracula, but in Zurich they call me something else. Something cleaner. Something that fits on a signature card and passes through compliance without friction. The banks don't need history. They need stability. And I offer both. 5 centuries of returns. Unbroken compound interest. The kind of long-term thinking that makes institutional investors weep with envy. This diary, which you've now found tucked between the shelves of Grimwick's forbidden library, was never meant to explain how money and blood and earth all flow through the same essential channels. Today, I write about accounts, about vaults, about the new kind of blood that circulates through the world's veins. Capital. If you keep reading, you might hear the rustle of banknotes or the whisper of old earth. Both sounds are the same, if you listen carefully enough. Chapter 1. The Vault Beneath the Lake. Zurich has many faces, but my favorite wears a mask of granite and silence. The city sits on gold the way a body sits on a skeleton. The structure invisible, essential, holding everything upright. But what the tourists see, the Bahnhofstrasse boutiques, the chocolate shops, the church spires reflecting in the Limmat, is just the skin. The real Zurich exists below. In vaults, in tunnels, in the limestone caverns that honeycomb the earth beneath the lake. That's where my true wealth rests. Not in the accounts, though those are substantial. Not in the stock portfolios, though those perform admirably. Not even in the real estate holdings that span 3 continents. Number. My real treasure is Earth. Black Earth. Wallachian Earth. Transylvanian soil. Dark as dried blood. Packed into climate-controlled containers, cataloged as archaeological material, and stored in a private vault that costs more per square foot than most Manhattan penthouses. I pay extraordinary fees for this storage. I pay even more for the silence, for the lack of questions, for the understanding that some clients have needs that transcend the usual categories of wealth management. The Swiss are very good at not asking questions. It's practically a national sacrament. But lately I've begun to suspect that someone is asking questions anyway. The vault lies 3 levels below the main banking floor, accessible only through a series of biometric checkpoints that verify not just fingerprints and retinal patterns, but also body temperature and pulse rate. I programmed the system myself, carefully, to accept my readings. Cold skin, slow pulse, the metabolic signature of something that shouldn't register as alive, but does. I visit once a month. Sometimes more if I'm feeling particularly unmoored, disconnected from the source. Adrift in the modern world's insistence that everything can be digitized, virtualized, abstracted into ones and zeros. The Earth reminds me that some things remain stubbornly analog. I take the elevator down. The descent is smooth, silent, engineered to imperceptibility. You could drop 20 floors and feel nothing but a slight pressure change in your ears. Swiss precision applied to every detail, every surface, every transition. The vault door is 3 feet thick. Steel alloy, titanium core. Locking mechanism so complex it requires both digital codes and physical keys that exist in only 2 copies. One in my possession, one in a safety deposit box in Singapore. The door opens. The air that escapes is cool, dry. But underneath I smell it. Home. The scent of Wallachian soil after rain. The smell of the Carpathians in autumn. The earth that made me, that unmade me, that remains the only ground that truly knows my weight. I step inside. The containers line the walls like coffins standing upright. Each one is sealed, temperature regulated, monitored for humidity and contamination. Inside, Earth. Just Earth. Dark and rich and absolutely essential to my continued existence. This is the secret the old stories got right, even if they didn't understand the mechanism. Dracula must rest in his native soil, must maintain contact with the ground that witnessed his transformation, must never stray too far from the earth that holds his original death. But the stories imagined this literally. A coffin filled with dirt, carried on ships, dragged through foreign lands like luggage. Primitive, inefficient, unsustainable in an age of customs inspections and radiological scanning. I learned to adapt, to modernize, to transform the literal requirement into something more financial. Money, I discovered, is its own kind of earth. its own ground, its own gravity. Every account I open, every investment I make, every transaction I complete, these are not just financial instruments. They are rituals, binding spells, ways of extending my connection to the homeland, across borders and oceans and centuries. The earth in these vaults is real, yes. Physical, tangible. But it's also symbolic. A hedge against the possibility that money alone isn't enough. That some connections require material presence, not just abstract value. I approach the nearest container, place my palm against the cold steel, and I swear, I feel it pulse. Once, twice, like a heartbeat from something buried. The earth is alive. Or I am dead enough that I can feel the difference. I don't know which possibility disturbs me more. Chapter 2. The blood of markets. The conference rooms above the streets. These are my new hunting grounds. Glass and steel. Ergonomic chairs. Digital whiteboards displaying market data in real time. Men in gray suits talking about liquidity as if it were their god. As if the flow of capital were somehow more real, more vital, more essential than the flow of actual blood through actual veins. They're not wrong, exactly, just limited in their understanding. I sit at these tables. I listen to their presentations. I watch the numbers dance across screens. Green for growth, red for loss. The color coding so obvious it's almost insulting. And I think this is just another way of describing hunger. Another language for predation. We need to increase liquidity in the emerging markets sector, someone says. Translation. We need more blood in the system. We need the flow to continue. We need the circulation to remain healthy or the whole organism dies. There's too much risk exposure in the Eastern European portfolio, someone else warns. Translation. Something dangerous lurks in those old territories. Something that doesn't follow the rules. Something that might drain more than it returns. I listen. I nod. I speak when spoken to, offering observations that sound wise because they're based on patterns I've watched repeat for centuries. Economic cycles are just seasons by another name. Bull markets and bear markets. Growth and recession, boom and bust. These are just the breathing of a massive global organism, and I have learned to breathe with it. To exhale when it exhales. To grow still when it sleeps. The banker leading today's meeting is named Lutz Brenner. 53 years old, Swiss-German. Educated at ETH Zurich and London School of Economics. He manages my European portfolio with a dedication that borders on obsession. He knows more about my financial position than anyone else alive. Or anyone else at all, actually, since most of the people who once knew are now quite thoroughly dead. He doesn't know what I am, but he suspects something. I can see it in the way his eyes linger on me when he thinks I'm not looking. In the way he phrases certain questions, testing, probing, searching for the inconsistency that will explain the anomaly. Mr. Draven, he says now, turning to address me directly. The conference room falls silent. 6 other board members, all watching. I wanted to ask about the Zurich vault storage. The fees have increased substantially. and the insurance company is requesting updated documentation on the contents. I smile. Not too wide. Never too wide. The contents are adequately documented loots. Archaeological material, as specified in the original contract. Yes, but he hesitates. This is where it becomes interesting. The insurance actuaries are asking why the material requires climate control and why it needs to be replenished. Ah, there it is. The question he's been building toward for months. The Earth degrades over time, loses potency, requires replacement. I have shipments sent from Romania twice a year, carefully packed, carefully documented as geological samples for research purposes. The paperwork is immaculate. The bribes are substantial. But eventually, someone always notices the pattern. The material is sensitive to environmental conditions, I say smoothly. It's part of an ongoing study on soil composition and historical agriculture. The replenishment is simply part of the research protocol. It's a terrible lie. Transparent. Weak. But lies don't have to be good. They just have to be expensive. And I pay enough that no one wants to look too closely at the inconsistencies. Lutz nods slowly. He doesn't believe me. But he also doesn't want to lose a client who keeps several $100 million in managed assets and never, ever complains about the fees. Of course, he says. I'll have the documentation prepared for the insurers. Thank you, Lutz. The meeting continues. Market projections, risk assessments, the usual theater of financial management. But I'm not listening anymore. I'm watching Lutz. Watching the way his mind works behind this careful banker's face. He's dangerous. Not because he knows anything, but because he wants to know. Curiosity is the most expensive trait in my world. More expensive than greed. More dangerous than ambition. I will have to do something about Lutz Brenner. The question is whether that something should be permanent. Chapter 3. Dinner with Shadows. The Kronenhalle is one of Zurich's oldest restaurants. Dark wood paneling, original artwork on the walls. Chagall, Miro, Matisse, and a wine list that reads like a history of European viticulture. It's the kind of place where the wealthy come to feel cultured, and the cultured come to feel wealthy. I've arranged a private dining room. 8 guests, bankers, politicians, foundation directors. The kind of people who shape policy without ever appearing to govern. The kind of power that doesn't need to be elected, because it can simply be purchased. They talk about returns, about tax optimization, about the stability of markets, as if markets were natural forces rather than elaborate fictions we've all agreed to pretend are real. I speak little. I smile often. I let them fill the silence with their voices, their certainties, their carefully rehearsed talking points. Between courses, they serve wine. The color is perfect. Deep red, almost purple, catching the candlelight like liquid garnets. I have to concentrate not to react, not to breathe too deeply. Because the warmth of blood is everywhere in this room. In the air, in their voices, in the fear of loss that underlies every confident assertion. This is what I've learned about Zurich. Fear flows better than wine here. The Swiss have built an entire civilization on the management of anxiety. Every vault is a monument to uncertainty. Every numbered account is a hedge against catastrophe. Every discreet service is an acknowledgement that terrible things happen to people who don't take precautions. And I am the ultimate precaution. The long-term investment. The asset that outlasts empires. One of the politicians, a woman in her 60s, elegant, powerful, representing interests that span continents, leans toward me. Mr. Draven, I wanted to thank you for your contribution to the Cultural Foundation. The museum expansion wouldn't have been possible without your generosity. It was my pleasure, Frau Kessler. Art should be preserved. History should be remembered. She smiles. You speak like someone who has seen a great deal of history. I return her smile. Only what I've read in books, of course. But her eyes hold a question. The same question everyone eventually asks when they spend enough time around me. How old are you, really? The answer is old enough to know better than to answer. The dinner continues. Duck, venison, dishes prepared with Swiss precision and French technique. I move food around my plate, occasionally raising fork to mouth, occasionally pretending to swallow. It's an elaborate pantomime, one I've perfected over decades. The food has no taste to me. Everything is ash and texture. Only blood retains flavor. Only life provides sustenance. But they don't know this. They see a wealthy eccentric who eats little and drinks nothing. An ascetic billionaire. A man of discipline. If only they knew what my discipline actually costs. As the evening winds down, as the guests begin to make their excuses and call for their cars, Frau Kessler approaches me one more time. There's a journalist, she says quietly. Young woman. She's been asking questions about your foundations, about where the money comes from, about anomalies in your financial history. I feel something cold settle in my chest. Colder than usual. What kind of anomalies? The kind that suggest your investments have been extraordinarily consistent. Too consistent. As if you have information that shouldn't be available. Or as if... She pauses. As if you've been making the same investments for much longer than your public biography would suggest. I don't move. Don't react. But internally, alarm bells are ringing. What's her name? Anna Richter. She writes for Wirtschaftswoche. She's good. Too good. I commit the name to memory. Add it to the growing list of threats that need to be managed. Neutralized. Eliminated. Thank you for the warning, Frau Kessler. She nods. We protect our own, Mr. Draven. But there are limits to what even discretion can hide. Be careful. She leaves. The other guests follow. And I am alone in the private dining room, surrounded by the detritus of a meal I didn't eat, and wine I couldn't drink. Anna Richter. I pull out my phone, make a call. The voice that answers speaks in Russian accented English. I need information, I say. Everything. Work, home, family, habits, weaknesses. Everything. Name. Anna Richter, journalist, Zurich-based. Timeline, 24 hours. The line goes silent for a moment, then... It will cost. It always does. I hang up. Pour myself a glass of water from the carafe. Stare at it. The liquid is clear, lifeless, devoid of the vital force that makes blood what it is. I am so tired of water. So tired of pretending. So tired of this endless, grinding necessity of caution. But the alternative is exposure. And exposure is extinction. So I will take care of Anna Richter, just like I've taken care of all the others over the centuries. The ones who asked too many questions. The ones who noticed patterns. The ones who got too close to the truth. I will take care of her, and Zurich will remain my sanctuary for now. Chapter 4. The Woman with the Pen. The Dolder Grand sits above this city like a crown on a hill. 5-star luxury, panoramic views. The kind of place where discretion is as carefully maintained as the temperature of the infinity pool. I meet Anna Richter in the bar. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake and the Alps beyond. She's younger than I expected, early 30s, dressed in a blazer that's expensive but not too expensive, carrying a leather notebook that's been used enough to show wear. She orders water. I pretend to do the same. Thank you for agreeing to meet, she says in German. Her accent is educated, urban, precise. I know your schedule must be very busy. I'm always happy to speak with the press, I lie. Transparency is important, she smiles. It doesn't reach her eyes. Then perhaps you can help me understand some inconsistencies I've found in your financial history. Here we go. What kind of inconsistencies? She opens her notebook. You founded your first investment fund in 1982. Before that, your public biography gets vague. You're listed as having worked in various consulting roles, but I can't find any former colleagues who remember you. No photographs from that era. No concrete documentation. I nod slowly. I valued my privacy, even then. I've always been a private person, but it's more than that. She's warming up now, gaining confidence. The investment patterns, they're unusual. He made significant purchases of Eastern European assets in the early 1990s, right before the Soviet collapse. You invested heavily in Chinese manufacturing in 2000, before anyone else saw the opportunity. You shorted the housing market in 2007, ahead of the financial crisis. It's as if... She pauses, choosing her words carefully. It's as if you had perfect information. Or as if you'd seen these patterns before. As if you knew exactly what was coming, because you'd lived through similar cycles in the past. Clever. Too clever. I study history, I say. Economic cycles repeat. Human nature doesn't change. If you pay attention to patterns, you can make educated predictions. For 40 years, with almost no losses. I've been fortunate. Or you've been something else. The challenge hangs between us. She's not accusing me of insider trading. She's accusing me of something stranger. Something that touches on the truth without quite reaching it. What are you suggesting, Miss Richter? She closes her notebook, leans forward slightly. Her neck is exposed, pale, vulnerable. The pulse visible even from here. I could reach across this table right now. I could end this conversation. Permanently. But we're in public. Cameras. Witnesses. Rules. I'm suggesting, she says carefully, that Victor Draven might not be who he claims to be. that the man sitting across from me might have a history that extends much further back than 1982. That you might be using documents and identities that belong to someone else. Someone who lived a very long time ago. Ice floods my veins. Not blood. I have no blood. But something colder. She doesn't know what I am, but she knows I'm hiding something substantial. That's a very serious accusation. It's not an accusation. It's an observation. I'm writing an article about financial immortality. How some fortunes seem to transcend normal human lifespans. How wealth passes through generations in ways that preserve not just money, but identity. You're one of several case studies. This is worse than I thought. She's not targeting me specifically. She's noticed a pattern. And patterns are how people have always found me. I think this meeting is over, I say quietly. I was hoping you'd provide your perspective for the article. I have no perspective to provide. You're chasing shadows, Miss Richter. I suggest you focus your considerable talents on stories with more substance. I stand. She remains seated, watching me with those sharp, analytical eyes. One more question, Mr. Draven. Just one. I wait. Why do you always meet during the day, but never in direct sunlight? Why are all your offices fitted with special window treatments? Why does every photograph of you show you in shadow? Also, my hands, usually so steady, shake slightly. Photosensitivity, I say. A medical condition. Quite common, actually. Of course. But she doesn't believe me. Thank you for your time. I leave the bar. Take the elevator down to the lobby. Exit through the main entrance where my car is already waiting. The driver holding the door. But before I get in, I pause. Turn back. Look up at the bar's windows. Anna Richter is standing there, watching me, writing something in her notebook. I get in the car, close the door, and I know, with absolute certainty, that Anna Richter will not be publishing her article, because some patterns cannot be allowed to become public. Some shadows must remain dark. Chapter 5. The Earth speaks. That night, I return to the vault. The bank is closed, but I have access. 24 hours, 365 days, no questions asked. This is what you get when you pay enough. When your accounts are large enough. When your influence extends deep enough. The guard at the night desk nods as I pass. He's seen me make this trip before. Late nights, strange hours. He doesn't ask why. The Swiss never ask why. The elevator descends. 3 floors below street level. 4. 5. Past the main vault levels. Past the safety deposit boxes. Past the ordinary darkness where ordinary wealth sleeps. To the special levels. The private chambers. The places where secrets go to hide from the sun. The corridor is lit by recessed LEDs, cold light, institutional, sterile. My footsteps don't echo. The acoustics have been engineered to absorb sound, to maintain the illusion that nothing exists here but walls and silence. I reach my vault. Biometric scan. Retinal verification. The system accepts my readings without complaint, without alarm. without understanding that what it's reading shouldn't register as alive. The door opens. The air that escapes is wrong. Not cool and dry as it should be, but warm, almost humid, as if something inside has been breathing, metabolizing, growing. I step inside. The lights come on automatically. The containers line the walls exactly as I left them. But something has changed. I feel it before I see it. The earth is moving, not metaphorically, not symbolically. Actually, physically moving. I approach the nearest container, press my palm against the steel. It's warm to the touch, impossibly warm. And through the metal I feel it. A pulse. Slow. Deep. Rhythmic. Like a heartbeat. Like something buried. Waking up. I enter the access code. The container unseals with a hiss of escaping pressure. The lid swings open. The earth inside is damp, glistening, as if recently watered, though no one has access to this vault except me, as if the soil itself is sweating or bleeding. I reach in, touch the earth with my bare hand, and it responds. A pulse travels up my arm, electric, organic, ancient. I smell iron, old blood, memory made tangible. For a moment, I don't feel like a master. I feel like a servant, like something being summoned rather than something in control. The earth whispers, not in sound, but in sensation. A communication that bypasses language, bypasses thought, speaks directly to whatever part of me still remembers being human. It says, you are not the only one who survives. It says, the ground remembers everything. It says, someone else has touched me. I pull my hand back as if burned. The earth settles. The pulse fades. The container sits silent and inert. Just dirt in a box. Nothing more. But I know what I felt. Someone has been here. Someone has accessed my vault. Someone has touched my earth. The one thing in this world that is truly, irreplaceably mine. And that someone left a message in the only language I would understand. A pulse in the soil. A heartbeat in the darkness. A reminder that even here, in the deepest vault beneath the lake, I am being watched. I seal the container, step back, look around the vault, as if I might see evidence of intrusion. But there's nothing. No footprints. No fingerprints. No signs of forced entry. Just the impossible fact. Someone was here. Someone knows. I leave the vault more shaken than I've been in decades. The elevator ascends. The guard nods again as I pass. I exit into the Zurich night. Cold, clean, ruthlessly well lit. My phone vibrates. The encrypted one. The one only 3 people in the world have the number to. I answer without speaking. A voice, old, rough, speaking English with an accent I can't quite place, says, "Look beneath the lake." Then, silence. I lower the phone. Don't hang up. Because I know the line will never truly close. Because whoever is on the other end isn't calling from a phone at all. They're calling from inside the earth itself. Chapter 6. The Red Eye. I stand at the window of my hotel room, the Borough Lac, 6th floor, overlooking the lake. It's 3 a.m. The city sleeps. The water is black glass, reflecting the lights of the buildings on the opposite shore. And there, across the lake, on the far side, a red light glows. Not a building light, not a boat, not a reflection. A single point of red, steady and unblinking, sitting just at the waterline, like an eye beneath glass. I watch it for a long time. It doesn't move, doesn't flicker. Just watches back, and slowly, with a certainty that turns my cold blood colder, I realize the truth. I don't own the lake. The lake owns me. I built my empire on the assumption that I was the predator, the hunter, the one who feeds. But what if I've had it backwards all along? What if I'm not the thing that hunts? What if I'm the thing being farmed? The red light blinks. Once. Like a signal. Like a confirmation. Like something saying, I see you. I close the curtains, but I can still feel it out there. Watching. Waiting. Patient in a way that makes my 5 centuries seem like a single afternoon. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I feel hunted. When I finally force myself to check my phone, there's a notification. Bank transfer. Into my primary Zurich account. Amount, 30 pieces of silver. Sender unknown. Reference note. Payment for services rendered. And below that, in the memo field, where only I should be able to write, the soil remembers Judas too. Entry number 4. Streets full of veins. My name is Vlad Dracula, though in the cities they call me investor, philanthropist, visionary. All the comfortable words that allow them to sleep at night. All the masks that let me walk among them without triggering their ancient, atrophied instincts for danger. But in truth, I am only the shadow that eats their light. The cold space between their warm bodies. The hunger that never announces itself until the throat is already open. This diary, which you've opened in Grimwick's forbidden library, was never meant for human eyes. Never meant to be translated from the private language of appetite into something comprehensible to those who've never felt 5 centuries of starvation compress into a single moment of need. Today I write about Manhattan, about streets that pulse like arteries, about bodies that lose blood through motion, through stress, through striving, through the simple exhaustion of trying to survive in a city designed to drain you. About me, who breathes this city the way other creatures breathe air. If you keep breathing, you will feel the pulse. Perhaps your own, perhaps something else's. Chapter 1. Manhattan beats. The city doesn't sleep. It digests. I watch it from my penthouse above 57th Street, where even the wind costs more than most people earn in a year. Below, life flows like an endless bloodstream. Yellow veins of taxis, red flashes of traffic lights, the staccato of sirens forming a rhythm so constant it becomes a kind of silence. Everything is part of a single organism that never rests, that never stops consuming, that takes in the ambitious and the desperate and the hopeful and converts them all into the same substance, fuel for its own continuation. I love it because I helped build it. Not with hands, I haven't built anything with hands in centuries, but with thoughts, with hunger, with patience, with the slow, steady application of capital and influence across decades that blurred into centuries. Manhattan is my mirror. I recognize myself in the greed of its inhabitants, in their endless drive for more. More money, more time, more life, more everything. I see their faces in the windows of high-rises, fleeting reflections like blood cells in motion, each one carrying oxygen to keep the organism alive. They call it progress. I call it digestion. The city eats its children, and I help it do so. I am no longer a monster with fangs and cape. I am a board meeting. I am a stock price. I am an algorithm that knows when you sleep and how to profit from your unconsciousness. But tonight I descend. Not as symbol, not as abstraction, but as body, as appetite made flesh. I want to feel it again. The heat, the density, the smell, the blood. I stand at the window, the real window, not the false ones in my office, and watch the rain begin. It comes down in sheets, and the city steams like something fevered, like something sick, like something dying that doesn't know it yet. I dress carefully, black on black, nothing that catches light, nothing that reflects. I am a hole in the visible spectrum, and I move through the city like a gap in the data. The elevator descends, 43 floors. In the old days, this would have been a climb down stone stairs, spiraling into darkness. Now, it's just waiting in a metal box, while numbers decrease and distance disappears. The lobby guard nods. Evening, Mr. Draven. Evening, Marcus. I know his name. I know all their names. I know his shift schedule, his daughter's college tuition payments, his wife's medical bills. I know everything about everyone who works in this building. Knowledge is the modern form of power. The rest is just theater. I step onto 57th Street and the city embraces me like a lover. Like something that has missed me. Like something that has been waiting. Chapter 2. Asphalt and Breath. The rain has turned the asphalt into a mirror. Every light reflects, doubled, tripled, infinite. The city multiplies itself in puddles, and I walk through a landscape of layered realities. I have no destination, no plan. This is the old way of hunting. Following scent, following instinct, following the pool of appetite through streets that know my footsteps even if they don't remember them. The crowd at this hour is different from the daytime throng. These are the shift workers and the insomniacs, the night crawlers and the digitally addicted. These are people who have given up on the illusion of circadian rhythm, who have surrendered to the city's demand that they remain available, always, forever. I see their faces. Every human here believes they are invisible, that they move through the crowd unnoticed, anonymous, safe in their insignificance. But they glow to me. Their hearts beat like Morse code, transmitting messages I can read from across a street. Their thoughts smell like guilt and desire, like ambition and fear, like all the secret appetites they hide from each other but cannot hide from me. I identify them by type. Bankers, walking fast, Heads down, phones out. Influencers posing for no one, performing for algorithms. Street artists selling nothing, hoping for everything. All the same species, really. The addiction-prone. The hope-dependent. The ones who believe that if they just work hard enough, want hard enough, sacrifice enough, the city will finally give them what they need. It never does. The city only takes. At the corner of 42nd and 10th, I see a young man, barely 30. His blood smells like adrenaline and caffeine, like success and sleeplessness mixed into a toxic cocktail. He wears a suit that costs more than his monthly rent, and his eyes have the particular deadness of someone who has achieved everything they thought they wanted, and discovered it means nothing. I follow him. Not obviously, just present. A few steps behind, matching his pace, staying in his peripheral vision without ever quite entering his conscious awareness. This is the art of it. Not the killing, that's easy, mechanical, boring. The art is in the approach, the stalking, the slow erosion of the prey's certainty that they are alone, that they are safe, that they control their own trajectory through the night. He enters a coffee shop, one of those 24-hour places that cater to the city's insistence that sleep is weakness. I don't follow him inside. Instead, I sit on a bench across the street, under an awning, sheltered from rain, and I watch. Through the window, I see him order, see him check his phone, see him sit alone at a table, laptop open, working, always working. The city demands it. I feel the energy of the crowd flowing around me. Streams of data, sounds, smells. Once, I listened to the pulses of farmers beneath a full moon. Now I listen to Wi-Fi networks and credit card frequencies. The city is a web of digital veins, and I am the thirst that keeps them open, that prevents them from clotting, that ensures the flow continues. He's not the one. I know this instinctively. His blood is too bitter, too poisoned by ambition and stimulants. I need something else tonight. Something softer. Something that still remembers what it feels like to be human. I stand, continue walking. The rain intensifies, and I let it soak through my clothes. I don't feel cold. I never feel cold anymore. But I can remember what it felt like, and the memory is almost enough. Almost. Chapter 3. The Bar Without Mirrors. In the Lower East Side, I find what I'm looking for. The bar is called The Pale. No mirrors anywhere. Not behind the bar, not in the bathroom, not even in the decorative fixtures. Just dark wood, glass, voices. The absence of reflection creates a particular atmosphere. People come here to be seen, not to see themselves. To be witnessed by other humans, rather than confronted by their own image. It's perfect. The crowd is the usual mix. Brokers pretending to be artists, artists pretending to be brokers, models pretending to be intelligent, writers pretending to be successful. Broken geniuses who like their own shadows on Instagram. They're the new vampires, really. Taking from each other constantly, feeding on attention and validation. They just lack style. At the bar, I see her. Black hair, pale throat, eyes like glass in rain. She stands alone. nursing a drink that's more ice than alcohol. Watching the room with the particular detachment of someone who has seen through the performance and can no longer pretend to be entertained by it. Elise. I know her name before she tells me. I can see it in her posture, in the way she holds herself, in the particular quality of her exhaustion. Some names are written in the body. She is young, but old inside. This is what attracts me, not innocence, but weariness. Humans become most delicious when they have lost meaning, when the scaffolding of purpose has collapsed, and they are just raw appetite and confusion. I approach, take the seat beside her, order a glass of red wine that I will pretend to drink. You don't want that, she says without looking at me. No, Chili, nobody wants wine here. They want to be seen wanting wine. There's a difference. I smile. You're very observant. I'm a painter. Or I was. Now I paint advertisements. There's a difference there too, but I'm starting to forget what it is. We talk about art, about freedom, about nightlife. She tells me she came to New York to make something real, but the city turned her into a factory. She produces images that sell products she doesn't believe in for companies she despises, to fund a life she doesn't recognize as her own. Everything here is a copy, she says. A copy of a copy of a copy. Nothing has color anymore, just tone, just brand. I nod. I understand this better than she knows. I have lived long enough to watch everything become a replica, to see authenticity drain out of the world like blood from a wound. What about you? She asks. What do you do? I invest, I say. This is technically true. I look for things that will grow, that will multiply, that will turn into more than they were. That sounds lonely. It is. This is the first honest thing I've said all night, and it lands between us like a stone dropped in still water, creating ripples. She looks at me then, really looks, and for a moment, I wonder if she sees. If some ancestral part of her brain, some ancient survival instinct, recognizes what I am. But then she smiles. Want to get out of here? Yes. Chapter 4. Neon Ritual. We leave the bar, step out into the night. The rain falls harder now, and the city smells like ozone and longing. Like electricity and desperation. Like all the things people want but cannot name. I lead her through narrow streets, past illuminated windows where other lives glow like aquarium displays. Music bleeds from doorways. Electronic confessions for a godless generation. Beats without melody. Rhythm without meaning. Elise talks as we walk. About her MFA. About the teachers who told her she had talent. About the moment she realized talent meant nothing in a city that valued only profit. She talks, and I listen to her breath more than her words. Even, controlled. She believes she is choosing where we go. She is mistaken. We stop in an alley between buildings. Above us, a neon sign flickers. Live forever. An advertisement for a gym. The irony is almost too perfect. I like the rain, she says, tilting her face up. Water runs down her throat, and I watch it trace the path I will soon follow. It makes everything feel clean, like the city is washing itself. The city never gets clean, I say softly. It just moves the dirt around. She laughs. That's beautifully depressing. I brush a strand of wet hair from her face. She closes her eyes. The rain drums on the fire escape above us, and somewhere distant a siren wails, and the city breathes around us like a living thing. I don't need to compel her. Don't need to use any of the old tricks. The gaze, the voice, the supernatural coercion that makes humans into puppets. I just need proximity. Just need to be present. To offer what she's been looking for without knowing she was looking. Oblivion, dressed as intimacy. The bite is not an act of violence. It is a prayer. Her blood tastes like espresso and paint thinner, like half-finished dreams and abandoned ambitions. I drink slowly, not from hunger. I fed recently enough, but from nostalgia, from the desperate need to feel something, to experience warmth, to remember what it was like when blood meant life, instead of just sustenance. The feeding is quick, efficient, precise. I take enough to matter, but not enough to kill. Her pulse slows, but doesn't stop. Her breathing shallows, but continues. When I release her, she slides down the wall to sit on the wet pavement, eyes unfocused, mouth slightly open. I wanted to feel something real, she murmurs. The words are slurred, distant. Just once, something that wasn't fake. I crouch beside her, touch her face with fingers that are already forgetting her warmth. You did, I tell her. You felt it, and then I'm gone, moving through the alley, through the shadows, through the rain. Behind me, she will sit for a few more minutes. Then she will stand. She will walk home. She will wake tomorrow with no memory of this except a vague sense of having lost something, of having given something away she can never reclaim. She will never paint the same way again. Whatever color she had left, I took it. This is what I do. This is what I am. Not a killer. Not anymore. Something worse. A thief of meaning. A predator who doesn't take life, just the quality that makes life worth living. Chapter 5. Siren Hymn. The sirens howl as if they understand what has happened. Ambulance. 2 police cars. The usual ballet of night shadows. But they're not for Elise. She's not heard enough to notice. They're for something else. Someone else. The city bleeds constantly. And I am just one of many who drink. I rejoin the flow of people, become part of the organism again. Nobody sees me. Nobody ever sees me. I am the gap in their peripheral vision, the place where their eyes skip over without registering absence. Times Square. I stop here because the excess is soothing. Screens everywhere. Faces, logos, advertisements. All of it screaming for attention with the desperate energy of the dying. Millions of eyes watching me not see them watching. I stand in the center of it all, surrounded by light. And I am invisible. This is my power now. Not strength or speed or supernatural ability. Just erasure. The ability to exist without being perceived. To move through crowds like a ghost through walls. The screens show me things. News. weather, stock tickers, a pharmaceutical ad for a drug I invest in, a charity appeal for a foundation I control, the city selling itself to itself, an Ouroboros of consumption that needs no outside sustenance because it has learned to eat its own tail. And I realize the city doesn't need me anymore. It has learned my lessons too well. It feeds on itself now, efficiently, ruthlessly, without my guidance. I am not its master. I am not even necessary to its function. I am just an echo, a historical artifact, a creature from an earlier age of predation, made obsolete by something more efficient, more total, more inhuman than I could ever be. The thought should frighten me. It doesn't. It relieves me. Chapter 6. The Banker Without Blood. I return to my penthouse. The elevator ascends, and I am alone with my reflection in the mirrored walls. Except there is no reflection. Just empty space where I should be. I have stopped finding this disturbing. It's just a fact, like gravity or entropy. The doors open. I step into my home. Glass and steel and marble. All the materials of wealth and none of the warmth of life. The windows show live feeds from cameras positioned throughout the city. I am surrounded by Manhattan, and Manhattan surrounds me, and neither of us can escape the other. On the table, my tablet glows. A notification. Lutz Brenner. Missing person alert. I touch the screen. Read the details. Lutz Brenner. The Swiss banker from Zurich. The one who asked too many questions. Who wanted to see inside my vaults. Who threatened to become a problem. He's dead. I know this with absolute certainty. I arranged it 3 weeks ago. Not personally. I'm more sophisticated than that now. But through proxies, through channels, through the kind of bureaucratic murder that doesn't leave fingerprints or witnesses. An accident, a tragic fall, a closed investigation. But the alert says, last seen in Midtown Manhattan, tonight. 10:13 p.m. I open the security feeds, scroll through cameras, find the timestamp, watch the footage. There. A figure on a pedestrian bridge near Grand Central. Tall, pale, motionless, standing in the rain, not moving, not reacting to the water, just present, watching. I zoom in. The resolution is good. I pay for the best surveillance systems. The face is visible. It's Lutz Brenner. Or it was Lutz Brenner. Or it's something wearing his face. The features are right, the height is right, the posture is right. But something is wrong. Something in the eyes. They don't blink. Something in the stillness. It's too complete, too perfect. The stillness of something that doesn't breathe. The stillness of something like me. I watch the footage loop. The figure stands. The rain falls. People pass around him like water around a stone. Nobody notices him. Nobody sees him. He is as invisible as I am. The screen flickers, goes black. When it returns, the figure is gone. Just the empty bridge, rain-slicked and gleaming. I sit back, feel something I haven't felt in decades. Genuine cold. Not the controlled temperature of my environment. but actual cold. Fear cold. The kind that comes from realizing you are not the only thing in the darkness. That something else is moving through the same shadows you thought you owned. A thought forms, clear and terrible. What if hunger is contagious? What if I've been creating something without realizing it? What if every person I've touched, every life I've drained, has been transformed into something? Number. That's impossible. The curse doesn't spread that way. I've been careful, meticulous. I feed without converting, drain without transforming. But Lutz Brenner is standing on a bridge in Manhattan. And Lutz Brenner is dead. So either I'm wrong about what I am, or something else is right about what it can do. Chapter 7. Beneath the city's skin. I go down, back to street level, back to the rain. The air in the lobby smells like copper and dust. And Marcus, the guard, looks at me strangely when I pass. Everything all right, Mr. Draven? Fine, I say. But I'm lying. Nothing is fine. Something is wrong in a way I don't have language for. I walk east, following instinct, following the pull of something I don't understand. The streets are emptier now. It's past midnight, and even Manhattan has a low tide of human presence. The night crowd has steamed to essential workers and the truly lost. I reach the East River. The water is black, industrial, flowing with the patient insistence of something that will outlast all of us. The rain has stopped, but the air is still heavy with moisture. And then I see it. Beneath the surface of the water, a glow, rhythmic, pulsing, like a heartbeat. I kneel at the edge of the embankment. Look closer. The glow comes from deep below. Something submerged. Something that shouldn't be producing light, but does. I reach down, touch the water. It's warm. The river is warm. The East River, which should be cold even in summer, which flows with industrial runoff and treated sewage and all the waste products of 8 million people. It's warm. Body temperature. Blood temperature. The city lives, but not through me. Not because of me. It lives despite me. It has developed its own circulation, its own metabolism, its own way of surviving that doesn't need my intervention. I remember the villages, the smell of wood smoke and blood. The first nights when I was king, when everything bowed to me. When my power was absolute, and my appetite was the only law that mattered. Now I'm just a shadow in a body that feeds itself. A parasite that has outlived its host's need for it. I pull my hand from the water. Stand. Look back at the city rising behind me. All glass and light and relentless vertical ambition. And I understand. Manhattan is not my kingdom. It is my grave. I have built my own tomb, brick by brick, investment by investment, century by century. And now I'm sealed inside it, living but not alive, powerful but not free, eternal but not unchanged. The city beats around me. Neon lights flicker like synapses firing. Traffic flows like blood through arteries. And I am just one more ghost haunting the streets. One more echo of something that used to matter. I walk back toward my building, through puddles that reflect the sky I'll never see in daylight, past windows where lives glow with a warmth I can no longer generate, through a city that has learned to be a better vampire than I ever was. And as I reach my building, as the doorman opens the door, as I prepare to ascend back to my glass cage, 43 floors above the feast, I smile. Because if Manhattan is my grave, then I am going to make sure I'm not buried alone. When I open the door to my penthouse, I see it immediately. Curious. On the marble floor in the center of the foyer, a droplet. Not water. Not blood. Light. It pulses. Once. Twice. A heartbeat made visible. As if someone has taken the rhythm of the city and concentrated it into a single point. Left here, for me to find. I kneel, reach toward it. The light pulls back, retreating, drawing itself into a thin line that slides across the marble. Impossibly bright, impossibly alive. It crawls under the wall, heading east, toward the harbor, toward the ocean, toward Europe. I stand, walk to the window, look out at the city that has become my prison and my home. And somewhere, across the Atlantic, across 5 time zones, in a vault beneath a lake, I know something is waking up. The earth remembers everything, and it has decided to respond. Entry number 5. Preacher in Rome. My name is Vlad Dracula, though in this city they call me Signor Valente. A good name. Solid. Italian without being too Italian. The kind of name that opens doors without raising questions. Rome is old. Older than me. Older than blood. Older than the concept of sin that tries to contain what I am. Today I write about a preacher who knows my name, though I never spoke it. About the city that still prays while its angels carry dust instead of messages. About the weight of history when history refuses to stay buried. If you keep listening, you might hear the bells. But sometimes bells are only warnings that arrive too late. Chapter 1. The city that knew me. Rome didn't welcome me with open arms. It welcomed me with open wounds. The cobblestones of Via Giulia gleamed after the rain like dried blood. Between the stone facades and accumulated centuries, the air smelled of incense and decay. Not the clean decay of nature, but the particular rot that comes from too much history compressed into too little space. I've seen many cities. I've watched them rise and fall, expand and contract, modernize and collapse back into themselves. But Rome always smells like guilt, like confession boxes and unpunished crimes, like prayers that were answered in ways the faithful never wanted. I rented an apartment in Trastevere, above an old bookshop whose owner called me Signor Valente, without asking who I was or where I came from. People here are polite from fear. Not the immediate fear of violence, but the deeper fear of knowing. Of learning something they can't unknow. Of seeing something they can't unsee. From my balcony I could see the dome of St. Peter's rising like an eye over the city. Watching. Always watching. Observing what it claims not to understand. And sometimes, at night, I watch back. The apartment is perfect for my needs. High ceilings, thick walls, windows that face away from direct sunlight. The building is old enough that no one questions the eccentricities of its tenants. The bookshop owner below is half-deaf and completely incurious. He sells volumes no one reads and asks nothing of the man who lives above him. I unpacked my single suitcase. I travel light now. I've learned that possessions are anchors, that everything you own also owns you. A change of clothes, a laptop, a phone that connects to networks that don't officially exist. That's all I need. Everything else I own is distributed across continents, buried in vaults, hidden in accounts, dispersed so thoroughly that no single catastrophe could erase me. In the evenings I walk the narrow streets. The alleys here are arterial, winding, designed for a time before automobiles and straight lines. They follow older paths, Roman paths, paths that predate even Rome. The city is built on layers, each one trying to bury the one below, none of them succeeding. I hear voices in these alleys, not just human voices. Those are easy to filter, easy to ignore. But older voices, whispered from walls, from fountains, from statues whose marble eyes have seen too much. Rome is a city made of memory, and memory is my currency. Memory is what I trade in, what I consume, what I can never escape. On my third night, I felt it. The sensation of being known, not recognized. I'm too careful for that. But known, seen, identified by something or someone who understands what I am beneath the expensive suit and the practiced smile. The feeling came from the direction of the Vatican, from that massive dome that watches over the city like God's unblinking eye. I should have left then. Should have packed my single suitcase and moved on to Vienna or Prague or anywhere else. But I am old, and old things are drawn to older things. So I stayed. And that, as they say, was my first mistake. Chapter 2. The Mass of Masks. On the third evening, I attended Mass at Santa Maria sopra Minerva. I didn't go from faith. I have none. And the concept itself seems quaint now, like believing in fairies or justice. But I went from habit, from the comfort of ritual, from the desire to sit in a space dedicated to something larger than appetite. Even if I no longer believe in that larger thing, the church is beautiful in the way old churches are. Gothic, soaring, heavy with the weight of prayers that were never answered. The ceiling disappears into shadow. The stained glass filters light into colors that don't quite exist in nature. The whole space is designed to make you feel small, to remind you that you are nothing, that God is everything, that your only proper response is submission. He doesn't work on me. I am too old to be intimidated by architecture. But the preacher was different. He was young, too young for the weight of his voice. He stood at the pulpit like someone who had always been there, like he'd grown from the marble itself. His cassock was plain black, no decorative elements. His face was unremarkable, the kind you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting him. But his eyes were old. He spoke in Italian, but I understood perfectly. Centuries in Europe teach you languages whether you want them or not. His homily was about immortality, about the sin of trying to escape death, about those who think they've outsmarted God, but have only trapped themselves in longer suffering. His voice carried through the Gothic space with unnatural clarity. There are beings who believe they have tricked God, who think that by avoiding death, they have won some great prize. But they forget. Even darkness is only light that is burned too long. His eyes found me in the congregation, found me specifically among 100 other faces, and held. I didn't look away. I never look away. That's a sign of guilt, of fear, of being prey. I am not prey. I smiled at him. Small, polite. The smile of a wealthy tourist enjoying the local color. He didn't smile back. The Mass continued. Communion, benediction, the usual theater. But I could feel his attention on me even when he wasn't looking. Could feel the weight of his awareness like a hand pressed against my chest. When the congregation rose to leave, I remained seated, waiting, knowing that he would come. Chapter 3. The Scent of Incense and Iron. The church emptied slowly. Old women in black, young families herding restless children, tourists checking their phones as soon as they crossed the threshold back into the secular world. I stayed. Sitting in my pew, hands folded, the picture of contemplation. The incense hung heavy in the air. The candles flickered, casting shadows that moved, even though there was no wind. The silence after Mass is different from the silence before. Heavier, thicker, full of all the prayers that were offered and not answered. I heard him before I saw him. Not footsteps, the stone floor swallows sound, but the rustle of his cassock, the displacement of air as he approached. "Signor Valente," he said. His voice was calm, too calm, the calm of someone who knows exactly what they're dealing with. "I've been expecting you." I didn't turn. Just sat, looking at the altar, at the crucifix hanging above it. Christ in his eternal agony. The price of human sin, displayed for all to see. "Why?" I asked. He moved into my peripheral vision, stood beside the pew, not sitting, not blocking my exit, just present. Because a shadow is only authentic when you understand the light that casts it. I turned to look at him then. Really look. His face was unremarkable still, but those eyes, they were wrong. Too knowing. Too old for the young face that held them. No cross around his neck. Just a ring on his right hand. Dark metal. No inscription visible, but I could feel it. Some kind of protection, some kind of ward, humming at a frequency just below hearing. I smelled blood. Not his blood. Not mine. Old blood, preserved in faith, weaponized through belief. "You know what I am," I said. Not a question. "No," he replied. "I know what you were. What you are now, that remains to be determined." Flew. Let's start it off. He moved then, walking not toward the exit, but deeper into the church, toward the side chapel. He didn't look back, didn't check if I was following. He knew I would. Because I needed to know, needed to understand what he knew, what he thought he knew, what the church, that ancient, patient organization, had been hiding in its archives all these centuries. The chapel was small, dark, lit by a single candle. On the wall, a fresco, Saint Michael trampling Satan. The angel's face was serene. The devil's face was terrified. The preacher stood before the fresco, his voice steady and deliberate. "We have records, documents, testimony. We know about the Impaler, about the dragon's son, about Vlad III, who died in 1476 and was buried without his head. He turned to face me. Except he wasn't, was he? Buried, yes. Dead, that's more complicated. I said nothing. Silence is often the best defense. The question, he continued, is not what you are. We know that. The question is what you will do, whether you will continue to feed, whether you can be redeemed, whether God's mercy extends even to, he chose his words carefully, to creatures who have refused to die. I'm not looking for redemption, I said. No, he agreed. You're looking for meaning. For purpose, for something to fill the centuries that stretch ahead of you. Immortality is a terrible gift when you have nothing to live for. He stepped closer, too close, into the space where fear should make him hesitate. The church doesn't want to destroy you, Signor Valente. We want to use you. And then he smiled. And for the first time since entering the church, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Genuine uncertainty. He left me standing there, in the chapel, in the dark, with only St. Michael for company. The fresco seemed to watch me with new intensity, and I wondered, not for the first time, if faith might be more dangerous than any weapon. Chapter 4. The Hunters of the Archives. The invitation arrived the next morning. Slipped under my door while I slept, or rested, or whatever you call a suspended state that passes for sleeping creatures like me. No signature, just a seal pressed into black wax, a cross entwined with a rose, the symbol of something old. Something that predates the modern church by centuries. The address was simple. Vatican Archives. A time, 3 p.m. A name, Father Domenico. I could have ignored it. Should have ignored it. But curiosity is a hunger as powerful as any other. And I have had centuries to develop my appetite for forbidden knowledge. The Vatican Archives are not what tourists imagine. They're not some dusty basement filled with conspiracy theories and hidden gospels. They're a working research library, modern and efficient, staffed by scholars who happen to wear cassocks. But beneath the modern sections, beneath the reading rooms and the cataloging systems and the helpful librarians, there are older sections. Sections that aren't on the maps. Sections that require different kinds of permission to access. Father Domenico met me at a side entrance, older than the preacher, late 60s perhaps, with gray hair and glasses, in the kind of patient expression that comes from spending decades reading documents that most people would find unbearably dull. He didn't speak, just gestured for me to follow. We descended. Down stone stairs worn smooth by centuries of feet. Down past the modern levels, past the Renaissance sections, past the medieval collections. Down to something older. The air grew cold, damp. The electric lights gave way to older fixtures, then to nothing but the flashlight Father Domenico carried. The room he brought me to had no windows. The walls were bare stone. On a wooden table, new wood, incongruous in this ancient space, lay documents. Photographs, microfilm, digital printouts. Your name, Father Domenico said, his first words since I'd arrived. appears in our records 127 times across 6 centuries. He gestured to the documents. I stepped closer, drawn despite myself. There, an execution order from 1476. My name, my crimes, my sentence. The handwriting was careful, official, final. But beneath it, in different ink, in note in Latin, corpus non indentum, body not found. Another document from 1522, a report of a nobleman in Wallachia who bore an uncanny resemblance to the dead impaler. Same face, same mannerisms, same cruelty. Another from 1673. A banker in Vienna who never aged, who conducted business at night, whose servants whispered that he drank no wine. The pattern continued. Different names, different cities, but always the same reports. A man who should be dead but isn't. A predator who adapts to each new century. A curse that refuses to end. The most recent document was dated 6 months ago. A handwritten note in fresh ink. Non mortuus est, iterum ambulat. He is not dead. He walks again. I looked up. Father Domenico had vanished. The door stood open, but the corridor beyond was dark. Only the preacher remained, standing in the doorway, silhouetted by distant light. "You read history," he said. "I write it." Chapter 5. Night in the monastery. I followed in. Not from trust, but from instinct. The same instinct that tells you when you're being hunted, when you're being tested, when you're standing at a threshold that will change everything if you cross it. He led me through streets that grew narrower and steeper, climbing one of Rome's 7 hills. Away from the tourist routes, away from the lit boulevards, into the old city, the real city, the one that exists beneath the postcard version. The monastery stood on a hilltop, like a scar on the landscape. Its walls were thick, medieval, built to withstand sieges and time. No lights in the windows, no signs of habitation. But the gate swung open at the preacher's touch, well-oiled and silent. "This is where it began," he said, "centuries ago." We descended into a crypt. The air smelled of stone and prayers, of faith concentrated and aged like wine. Candles flickered, impossible candles, burning with no apparent source. On a stone table sat a chalice, ancient, black, empty. The preacher stood before it, his expression somber and determined. "You believe you're immortal," he said. "But what is immortality when you've forgotten what you're living for?" "Survival," I answered. "No," he shook his head. "Not survival. Sacrifice. Everything that lives must give something up, must pay a price. You've been taking for 5 centuries. When do you give back?" He took the chalice, drew a knife from his cassock, ceremonial, old, the blade etched with symbols I recognized but couldn't read. Cut his palm, let blood fall into the cup. I smelled it, fresh, warm, pure, but something else too. Something that made my hunger recoil instead of surge forward. Something that smelled like holiness, like weaponized faith, like belief made tangible and dangerous. "Drink," he said, offering the chalice. I laughed. I couldn't help it. I never drink what's offered to me. That's how you survive 5 centuries. He smiled. Actually smiled. And in that smile, I saw something I didn't expect. Pity. Then Rome will drink you, he said. Chapter 6. Fire in the piazza. I woke to the sound of bells. Not the regular bells. Those ring at scheduled times, predictable, comforting in their routine. These were wrong, discordant, urgent, ringing at an hour when no bell should ring. I went to the balcony. Below in the piazza, something burned. Not a building, not a car. Something else. Something that produced too much light, too much heat. Flames that rose too high and burned too bright to be natural. And around the fire, people, hundreds of them, standing with candles, their faces illuminated, their eyes empty. They weren't singing hymns, they were singing my name. Dracula, Dracula, Dracula. The chant rose like smoke, like prayer, like accusation. The preacher stood among them. I could see him, even from my height, even through the fire's glare. He was the still point in the chaos, the calm center around which everything else revolved. And beside him stood a figure too pale for the firelight, too still for the heat. A man who should not be there, who could not be there, who was dead and buried in Zurich. Lutz Brenner, or something wearing his face. I watched them. They didn't look up. They didn't need to. They knew I was watching. This was theater. This was message. This was the old church showing me what it could do when it decided to move. Sirens in the distance. Police. Fire brigade. The machinery of the modern state responding to the ancient ritual playing out in its streets. I went down. Through my apartment, through the bookshop, out into the night. The smoke was thick, acrid, wrong. Not wood smoke, not anything I recognized. I walked toward the fire, through the crowd. Nobody stopped me. Nobody even looked at me. I was invisible. The way I've always been invisible. The ghost walking among the living. The heat should have stopped me, should have burned, but I felt nothing. Just the cold knowledge that something was changing, that the rules I'd lived by for 5 centuries were being rewritten. The preacher saw me approach, turned to face me. The firelight painted his face in contrasts, light and shadow. Divine and demonic. We'll meet again, he said quietly, in the city that knows no mercy. Vienna. He meant Vienna. The next point on the triangle. The next sanctuary that was no longer safe. Chapter 7. The heart of the Vatican. By the next morning, Rome was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that follows catastrophe, when people are afraid to speak, afraid to remember, afraid to ask questions. I went to the Ponte Sant'Angelo, the Angel's Bridge, where tourists take photos and vendors sell souvenirs, and the Tiber flows brown and slow, beneath centuries of history. I asked about the fire, about the gathering in the piazza, about the chanting. Nobody knew what I was talking about. The newspaper vendor shrugged. No fire last night, signore. Very quiet, very peaceful. I asked about the Mass at Santa Maria sopra Minerva. About the young preacher with old eyes. That church has been closed for restoration for 2 years, he said. No services, no priest, no Mass. I bought a paper I wouldn't read and walked back to my apartment. The streets were wrong, the angles slightly off, the shadows falling in directions that didn't match the sun. Rome was editing itself, hiding what had happened, protecting its secrets the way it has protected secrets for 2,000 years. On my table, when I returned, lay a new seal, cross and rose, black wax, still warm, as if it had been placed there moments before. No letter, no note, just the seal itself, radiating heat, radiating intention, radiating threat. I went to the balcony, looked out over the rooftops of Trastevere, over the Dome of St. Peter's, over the city that has forgotten more history than most cities will ever have. And I saw it. Fog. White, thick, moving with purpose, rising from the direction of the Vatican, flowing through the streets like something alive, like something with intention, like breath from the mouth of something vast and patient and utterly certain of its power. I knew then that I would be summoned, soon. Not by the Pope, he is merely a man, but by something older that uses the church the way I use corporations. Something that has been watching me for centuries, cataloging my movements, waiting for the moment to act. And now, apparently, that moment had arrived. Cliffhanger. The 3 cities. That night, or what passes for night when you no longer sleep in any meaningful way, I heard them again. The bells, ringing with no wind to move them, no hands to pull the ropes. Just sound, pure sound, ancient and terrible, and absolutely deliberate. And within that sound, a voice. Not speaking, not exactly, but present, formed from the harmonics of the bells, from the spaces between the tones, from the silence that should exist, but doesn't. 3 words, 3 cities, 3 wounds in the map of my existence. Zurich, Rome, Wien. Zurich, where my earth sleeps in vaults. Rome, where my past has awakened. Vienna, where what? I don't know. But I know I will find out. Because the voice in the bells was not asking. It was not suggesting. It was commanding. And somewhere, in a monastery on a Roman hill, a preacher with old eyes was preparing for a war that had been 5 centuries in the making. A war that would be fought not with weapons, but with faith. And I had no defense against faith. Because you cannot kill what you do not believe in. And I had stopped believing in anything long ago.